So, welcome everyone. Welcome. Um, you probably met me before, Mark Daniel. For those that are online. Um, Ruthie is at home. She's with us in spirit and hopefully online as well. And Jeff, of course, is vacationing, and we look forward to him being back with us sooner than later. Last week, when I was talking with Ruthie after her talk, she called me over and asked if I would mind doing a talk today on one of the Paramitas. And the word that she used was diligence, to which I said, yes, I can be prepared and ready to do that. And so here I am, prepared and ready to do that. Uh, One of the things I would like to do, obviously, we'll start with our meditation as we normally do, but one of the things I'd also like to do is because we're more into our core group. These are, the people that are here with us in Valley Rica right now are people that come on a regular basis. So I'd like to open up the floor a little bit more as we talk about it. I'm going to make some suggestions. I'm going to offer some insights, and then we can discuss them. We can explore them. And so that's the way it's going to be. We'll start off with our meditation. This is going to be a guided meditation. And obviously, by the nature of the meditation, I'm going to be leading us somewhere in the discussion, which will be obvious about diligence. Okay? This will be a fairly short one. Will probably be about 3 minutes or so. Okay? I don't think so. Just you'll, maybe open your eye at one point and wink at you. It's Lisa. I'll wink at you and you can chime us back. Okay? Excellent. So, just in our normal sitting position, or if you have a meditative position that you prefer, I invite you to embrace that. Again, we're in Valley Rica, we are in Costa Rica, and there are going to be background sounds, and that's all part of the experience. It truly is. Sounds like possibly a truck or a car or a motorcycle or incredible birds, or maybe a howler monkey will walk through and announce himself. All part of the experience, and we welcome that into our meditation. Settling into our breath. And again, it's just an observation. I'm not asking you to do anything other than just observe yourself. Whatever you feel your breath feels more comfortable with, embrace that. As you do so, you may begin to notice that your body is acquiescing, relaxing. Because one, it's not being stressed by anything. Two, you're infusing with more oxygen, more life prana, and the cells are feeling supported and vibrant, which creates a relaxed state. That relaxation continues with every deep breath and especially with every exhalation. And if possible, I encourage you, again, your call, I encourage you to extend your exhalation longer than your inhalation, if that's possible. I'm just noticing the difference. Awareness of self. Awareness of self in relationship with the world around you. And awareness of that inner peace, however fleeting or grand. As you settle into that grace, I'm going to suggest that you see yourself, and this is for the people in Costa Rica, those make more sense if you're online, maybe choosing a city or town that you're in and driving to another town. But we're here in Ojochal, and we decide to drive to Quepos, about an hour and change away. We are going to follow the highway. In your mind's eye, you see yourself driving on this highway. Traffic is nominal, no major encumbrances. The road is paved the entire way, so you cruise effortlessly. There's no big hills. And it's a beautiful day. Notice that as you're driving, You are aware that you are going to Capos. There's a reason you're going there. There's something that you hope to experience. And in so doing, you have this vision of yourself in Capos. The road is carrying you there. Your vehicle is carrying you there, and everything is going fine. As you're driving there, you get an idea that you want to take a turn off of that road, a short little detour, perhaps to visit a friend or to go to a shop or whatever it is, but you detour off of this main path. And for those of us in Costa Rica, you know that once you're off of that paved highway, the roads are more challenging. They're bumpy. They aren't paved anymore. And you notice how your car bumps and heaves and creaks as it drives along this road. Perhaps you even have to drive up the famous hills that will lead you somewhere, and you must drive slower. You still have this vision of Capos, of seeing yourself in Capos, but right now your vision has been distracted and you are driving to somewhere different. And when you get there, perhaps if you had a GPS or Waze or whatever, Google Maps, whatever, it doesn't work. And you don't necessarily remember how to get back to that main road. And you drive, you become frustrated, the road becomes even more washed out or full of potholes. There's inclines and declines until finally you see a sign, and the sign leads you back to the highway, and you finally make your way back to the highway. And as you get closer to the highway, your vision of Capos becomes stronger again. You're no longer dealing with the issues that you're in right now, and you are stepping forward to the vision that you originally have of getting to a Capos. As you get to the highway, you make your turn, you start driving, and the sign says Capos, some number of kilometers away. For now, we'd just like you to muse, consider, not think, just observe that slight meditation, that slight journey. As I said earlier, I am going somewhere with this. Notice how you feel when you started the journey, when you had the initial vision. Notice how you felt when you were distracted, the reason for your distraction. It felt reasonable. You moved off of that highway onto a broken road. How you felt when you got to your destination, how you felt when you became disoriented, how you felt when you realized that you were having trouble getting back to that main path, and how you felt when you found the way back to that path, got onto that path, and assumed your journey to your original destination, your original vision. And we'll just muse on that for a bit. The key here is to notice how you felt in each of those stages. few moments. I'll be calling you back. The nature of this exploration, this soft and gentle exploration, is to prepare you for today's talk, which is about diligence. I feel that that what I was suggesting is we've all experienced it. We've all felt that we were going somewhere. There was something we were called to do, whether it's some grand destination in our life or just going to Capos to go to Walmart or whatever's there. And how easily we get distracted in our journeys, or distracted or called away from our visions. And it seems reasonable to be pulled away or drawn away or called away from them. But when we get off our track and too far from our track, it's easy to become confused and frustrated. And the only way to continue that is to work it through until you see the signs that lead you back to your original destination, that vision that you had in your mind. And today we're talking about only one of the 6 Paramitas. But I'd like to ask a question of the group, just opening it up, and there is no wrong answer. But what is enlightenment? Like, if I didn't know what enlightenment was, how would you describe it to me? And again, if you can just speak loudly so that the throngs of people on the internet. How appropriate that Bodhi's answering for us.
The way I perceive...
A little louder, please.
The way I perceive enlightenment is when the mind is in a constant state of gratitude, regardless of the external or internal circumstances.
Nicely put. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
For Bodhi.
Yeah, kind of nailed that, didn't he?
I was searching for it. Oh my God.
So yeah, well, basically the state of enlightenment is moving into a nirvana, or we are freeing ourselves of dukkha, or we're just moving into a state of continual grace, and as you put it, gratitude. Yeah, so we all feel that's a fairly reasonable. Yeah, okay. So if this enlightenment is what we're seeking, don't we find them in the 4 Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path? Don't they explain to us ways to get there? And the answer is they do. Then why do we need this second one? These are characteristics. These are perfections that people that are enlightened, these paramitas, these are perfections that these beings express naturally. They're signs of what they do naturally. So one of the things that I teach is the tree. And in the tree, we have these different levels. And the beginning area is considered self at the expense of other. And then you move into the middle part, which is other at the expense of self. And then you move to the top part, which is a balance between self and other. And it makes sense when you think about it, or when you consider it, because when we're in our initial stages, when we're in our growth, we're here on the earth, we're reliant on other people to provide for us, to support us, to look after us, keep us safe. So it is self, it's my preservation at the expense of others, or the goodwill of others. And then I reach a certain point by which I find a balance, and I realize that I have received so much that I now have the ability to give. And so what do? Perhaps I give to a child, perhaps I give to somebody. I now move into giving at the expense of myself, which could be considered an upgrade. but it's still at an expense until we move into self and other imbalance, which means everything that I'm going to do will be received in the way that it's intended. And whatever I receive, I will receive in the way that it's intended. Buddhism does something very similar. There are 3 stages to the enlightenment process. One is liberation of self. Next is the liberation of others. And the third is Buddhahood, achieving Buddha. In the first one, liberation of self, we have the 4 noble truths. The truth about what suffering is. The truth of the origin of suffering, which is usually us. We create our own discomfort. The truth of the ending of suffering, or the cessation of suffering, or the completion. If I am creating my suffering, then I'm able to step away from it as well. I can complete this process. I might have to do some teachings, learnings, or something, but I can complete it. And once I've achieved that ability to release myself from the suffering, then the Eightfold Path, these series of guidances that say, if you embrace these, right concentration, right action, mindfulness, all of these things, if you embrace them, the chances of going back into that suffering is greatly diminished. Are we all in agreement with that? That's liberation of self. That as we move into enlightenment, just before the Buddhahood, we're going to embrace 6 other ones. And when I say there's 6 in the Mahayana Buddhist, but you can also find that there are 8 or 10. But generally, they're all the same. And one is the perfection of generosity, the perfection of morality, the perfection of patience, the perfection of vigor, the protection. I wonder what it means if I can't say perfection.
You're not perfect.
I don't think so. There's a hidden flaw being revealed here. The perfection of meditative or your meditation or concentration. And then lastly is the perfection of wisdom. And we receive that 6th once we understand the other 5. Once we understand those other 5, we've reached that point, the wisdom opens and we are the receiver of that. Discipline. Why discipline? Discipline is the ability to conserve energy while achieving perfection. I'll say it again. It is the ability to conserve energy on your way to perfection or to enlightenment. The reason is, how many times do we find ourselves considering diligence as something that I won't do anymore? I'm never eating another Oreo cookie. And we have this draw to this thing, which is exerting energy. The Oreo cookie. I'm going to the Oreo cookie. That's an energy. But then I also have this repulsion. I'm going to push away, resist, or combat that urge for the Oreo cookie, which is also costing me energy. And so I'm using my energy against myself. And what I'm suggesting in diligence is this. What if the vision of the healthier choice was your focus? And you were diligent about focusing on that and not the Oreo cookie. One of my teachers had a bowl of cookies, loved chocolate chip cookies, and wanted to stop eating them. And so she put this big bowl of cookies on the table. She was a psychologist. And she put a big bowl of beautiful apples right beside there. And every time she wanted a snack, she would go and help herself to a cookie while looking at the apple. She wouldn't judge herself. She wouldn't let it go. She'd eat the whole bowl and the apples would still be there. New bowl, fresh bowl of apples would show up. But eventually what ended up happening is we all figured out she would start eating the apple and less cookies until it got to a point that the cookies came off the table and the apples remained. It was just a preferred choice. Being diligent about not eating the cookies anymore was futile. The diligence became a reward of a healthier body, healthier mind, and healthier expression. Diligence is that ability to focus in on what we know is possible and maintain it. Okay, so I've opened a few doors here. I've just given you some considerations. I'd like to open up the floor a little bit and see any feedback or any thoughts or anything you'd like to add or question.
One thing that came up for me with diligence then was we're at sea. Many years ago, I smoked cigarettes. And I tried quitting, and it was a constant battle of the Oreos and the chocolate chip cookies. And so it dawned on me that that wasn't going to work, kind of along that same line. So I gave myself permission to smoke as much as I wanted. In fact, I smoked more than I normally, I was like just all the time. And then I started noticing what wasn't good about it. I wasn't able to, at the time I had a job for diving and I wasn't able to hold my breath as long. I started noticing my clothes were stinky and all this stuff that was not a good thing. And so, like that, I quit smoking.
Exactly.
And it was just the realization of what didn't work in what I wanted to, what my goal was, what the conflict was, and giving myself permission to go ahead, okay, go ahead and do this thing that you're struggling with. And it passed. So that's my opinion.
And that's a good story. It's exactly what I'm talking about. Is when we see what the outcome or what we're doing to yourself and what the possible outcome is, it's very easy to focus in on the outcome that we desire, rather than fighting ourselves constantly on something that we can't understand or contend with in the beginning, and try to figure out the way out of it. Anyone else? Michael.
Well, I have a question.
Please.
The relationship you might see, or the difference or similarity in energy between diligence and perseverance. It seems like it's not the same, but they're in the same room.
So Michael's just asking, just in case, I'm just repeating, that he's asking, was it the difference or the similarity between?
Yeah, what the energy difference
Signature
might be between someone who's operating from perseverance towards what seems like a similar outcome and the experience of being in diligence, which seems a little, to me it seems a little higher energy, but I can't tell you exactly why.
It's a great question. So Michael's just saying what is the similarities or differences between diligence and perseverance? And again, we're opening this up for everyone. I would suggest, though, perseverance feels like a struggle. It feels like I'm straining for something. And what I'm suggesting in the diligence is I'm walking boldly towards something. It sounds like diligence means that, that there are borders. But again, in the opening meditation, diligence is the ability to be on the path driving to Capos, understanding that it's a very clean road and it's going to carry me there relatively effortlessly. And I know that if I deviate off of that, I've moved off my intended path and I run that there's an opportunity for discord in my life, certainly in regards to my vision of being Capos.
So perseverance would be persevering through the gravel or road instead of
It could be.
taking the highway.
or fighting the urge to get off the highway. Whereas diligence is, I see why I'm going there, and I'm going to stay focused on that. Am I explaining that okay?
Absolutely. When you first mentioned diligence, I thought of perseverance, which is interesting that you bring it up. And it was my typical upraising of the not self-flagellation, but the tough road. You know?
Right.
Gotta be, and it was more punitive. It was more. This
Yeah.
is a skill
More
you gotta
punitive is the
have.
word.
Do. But then when you explained the cookie thing, or sharing the smoking thing, I just love that your glass can be half full or half empty here. It's so refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's no. So it's very interesting that you brought that up because, and it's very easy to think they're the same, but with your help, I can definitely see the difference, and I much prefer diligence.
Diligence.
One
Due
seems to
diligence.
have more discipline to it.
One seems to have more discipline. And again, one of the things that I want to add to this is the word perfection. These are perfections, which means that you are operating on a higher state of awareness, a higher state of what is available, rather than fighting or working against something.
Which is the perseverance.
Which it could be perseverance. Perseverance is also really good. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's been mentioned here quite a few times that there are times when just focusing in on something and being or distracting yourself, consciously distracting yourself from something so that you can attain those points.
Should be like rising above the negative mind that might be observing, and you're so used to hearing the negative mind voice. You really often people don't think it's anything but good advice, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily. And so the perseverance is moving beyond that habitual pattern of thinking.
Agreed.
I love Sharon's example in conjunction, because for me, of course, it's food as well, and the foods that aren't so good for me. But I like this idea of just choosing to focus more on how good I feel after the positive choices, and let that just over time weigh the scale on that side, and not keep punishing myself for other indulgences, but more rewarding myself by noticing the good things of the good ones.
Mm-hmm. One of the examples that I found that I really liked was the diligence. Part of diligence is not limiting yourself to the amount of joy that you can receive. And you think about that, and it's like, what do you mean by that? And then, as I considered it more, it meant that if I am staying on my path, I am going to be supported and uplifted and guided on my path. The things that I need will present themselves on my path. And my path gets easier, which I'm feeling more joy. I'm feeling more inspired to do it. And this inspiration helps me to maintain my diligence to my intended goal. Again, we're talking about freedom, liberating self in the initial stages to liberating others. And so when we talk about the Fourfold Path, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, these are things that help us to get into these initial stages, get us moving forward, showing us what is possible, reducing the amount of suffering that is in our life. But in this next part, what we're doing is we're getting to a point where we're able to communicate with others, talk to others about it, and be of support and guidance. Imagine you're in your kitchen and you have a roommate, and you walk into the kitchen and you bump your hand and you're like, ow, and then you pick up the teapot to make some tea and you spill water all over the floor and you burn your toe and you're like, oh man, and you put the teapot down and the roommate comes in and says, look at the mess you made, clean it up. It's really hard to stay joyful and focused at that particular point. You've got a lot going on, and life does this to us all the time. What the diligence does is it helps to separate what's actually happening. Certainly, the spilling of the water is an accident. You don't get so upset about that. The reaction of the roommate, while not appreciated, You can certainly understand. We don't know what the story is with the roommate, and we can understand that. It's the ability to remain focused on this higher state of awareness, the enlightenment. Again, these are the perfections, these are the virtues, these are the expressions of people who have reached stages of enlightenment. It makes sense to you, all the other things, and it's easier to stay focused on that joy.
I think also it's a matter of noticing, being more mindful of how you used to react.
Mm.
So once you're mindful of that, you get to make the decision.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before there was the enlightenment,
Mm-hmm.
it was on remote, and you just unmindfully just did, talk, said, reacted. However, when you find some mindfulness about that, you're able to stop, pause, and notice, and make a choice. Do I want to respond to the roommate with, yeah, well, this is what happened, or shut whatever you're going to say. Whatever you're going to say, you have a choice. Just pause.
Oh, that enlightenment. That phrase. Yeah, what I feel we're exploring here even more is that we've transcended even that. This is just a state of perfection whereby we recognize that on one level we would have responded and done those things. It's not about having to change anything. It's about knowing how we prefer to respond and leaving it only at that. Does that make sense?
No.
No? Anyone want to decipher that for me? No? Okay, what I'm saying is, and this could just be levels of consciousness, which might be for another talk. In the scenario that I gave, I feel the enlightened person probably wouldn't have reacted to the spilling of the water, the burning of the toe, or the reaction.
All of it.
All of it. It just would have been something.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a cloth and cleaned up the water, run their hand under cold water.
Mindfully.
Yeah, just aware of what's going on and coming back into that. And it's the diligence to remain there as opposed to having to process it, figure it out, and discern what is the right answer. Mm-hmm. You just naturally are in that channel, that flow.
Yes, but you're talking about like your roommate who comes in and they may angrily, confront you about it. And now you've got a whole nother situation to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
You're not in complete control now. Now you have something that is affects your mindfulness of what you were doing with someone else that kind of stepping into your space or whatever, in not a loving way. And that is really the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is what can trigger when you lose your momentum or you lose the focus. The focus that you have. Right. Is when these things are thrown at you, and that's life.
It is.
That is what we go through in life. It's all these distractions. Some of them are, we can work through them, but the human element of distractions is always, it's kind of no man's land. You don't know what's coming because we're all different.
Exactly.
And that is really, when you can conquer that, when you can deal with that, you have really had a breakthrough.
Yeah. Isn't that what we were talking about driving along the road and then being distracted by something and going into the dirt road? Or to put this story another way, what if somebody that you adore and love, you cherish and you want the best for, is dealing with a problem? And you are operating on an enlightened level, which is that you have these 6, 8, or 10 perfections that you have enhanced and embodied and share regularly. The other person is struggling, not pointing to a cushion. This person, this hypothetical person that I care about is struggling, and you want what's best for them. You want to do what's best for them. How do you communicate in a way that makes sense to them? Because anything that you offer to them is going to could feel like a judgment. Who are you to judge me? Who are you to say that's true? Who are you to tell me, I remember when you were this way? And it's the point then of being in the center and saying, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. This will work out. I'm sorry that you're frustrated by the water on the floor or this issue that you're going through. Can I be of assistance in any way? And if so, please help me to understand. How is it that I can assist you in this? Because obviously I haven't got a clear picture of it. You show me, I'll step in, I will be there. Fly. It's coming.
To me, it's the taking things personally.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that the roommate walks in the room and is bitching about the water on the floor, that's his problem.
Agreed.
You know, but instead I don't know, we blame ourselves
or defend ourselves.
It was an accident.
Yeah.
You know, but we judge ourselves as being incompetent for one reason or another.
Yeah.
Or someone else judges us, and then we have to, what do we do? Defend ourselves, or do we get above it and just let it kind of pass on by?
What other people think of me is none of my business.
Yeah.
I wish I could live that, but it seems like a wise saying.
I'd like to take this one step further. You are living in a house. You have just finished cleaning the kitchen, and it is spotless. The Dalai Lama walks into the kitchen. The Dalai Lama makes a cup of tea and spills tea water all over your nice clean floor. How do you respond to the Dalai Lama?
With grace.
With
I
great.
lick it up so I'd be like, I love your water.
Please do the whole floor. But this is what I'm saying. When we reach these higher levels of awareness, chances are the roommate is not going to attack us. And even if they do, I can't imagine the Dalai Lama taking it personally. I can't imagine the Dalai Lama rejecting, pushing back, or defending. It would probably.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Please, it would probably be taken with a state of grace.
So you're saying when we attain
This enlightenment.
Other people don't react the same way to us if we were in a state of
Discord.
Yes, discord.
Oh,
So we're attracting energy to act in response.
Like attracts.
Yeah.
That's
Good job.
I get that.
Good
and
job.
I agree with you.
Thank you. I'm glad that you agree. I feel validated.
Let that go, Mark. Let that go.
Give it another 5 minutes.
So I was thinking about that earlier. And that, if you're just wiping it up calmly, the other person might not react coming in. But sometimes, you might be in this beautiful state of grace and the other person, just walks in and projects their challenge all over you.
Mm-hmm.
And
I wonder who she's talking about.
Smart. It happens everywhere. But it can be hard to maintain your peace when someone else has really got their energy riled up and is, spewing it all over the place.
And you're right. But we're talking about a state of perfection. You have risen above that. Yeah. If not, then we're back down into that first stage, which is the liberation of self. And we come back to the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path.
You just take your breath and don't take it personally.
And don't take it personally. more often than not, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the person processing. They are overwhelmed. They're beyond their limits, and having compassion for them at that particular time. Ruthie talked about something, oh gosh, a couple of months ago, and she was talking about how Mara was attacking the Buddha, and these legions of armies came and they were shooting the arrows. And as the arrows came into the field or the presence of the Buddha, the only way that energy could get in the space of the Buddha was to be transformed into flowers. Another way to look at it is if we're sitting in a dark room and we're absolute darkness, you can't see anything, you can't feel anything, your mind is taking over things, and you reach up and you feel a light bulb that's hanging from a wire, and you feel a little chain beside it, and you tug on that little chain, the entire room fills with light. The darkness can't get in there. The only way the darkness could reach you is if it transforms into light. With me?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's living in love.
It's living in love, which is enlightenment.
Which is the way I saw that statement, because it doesn't matter if it's the Dalai Lama or if it's Dave or whoever, because I think what's going to elevate me or my spirit or my whatever, my consciousness, or help me recognize my consciousness, is not seeing that other person as any one person at all, but seeing their inner light, seeing them as light. It doesn't, to me, the joy comes from, I don't know if it's connection or
A greater
being
understanding.
able to have a soft space.
Mm.
That makes no sense. But it's more important to me to see the Dalai Lama as you, as that person, as anyone spilling the tea.
Well, he's got a lot of PR too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus
but
you
we're
have a lot
all
of
the
people
Dalai
around them,
Lama.
too.
We're all already that. So it doesn't matter who that person is to me.
When I was raising my daughter, I was a stay-at-home father for a year and a half and working on a commercial pilot's license at the same time. And my daughter adored her mother. I was number two. I was definitely number two. I was not number one. And her mother and her had a relationship. They have an incredible relationship now. And I was always outside of that relationship. And I found myself numerous times saying, how do I convey my hopes, expectations for this day, for having a nap, for anything else? And when my daughter would get upset with me, I would sit quietly and I would take a deep breath and I'd say, if I was a Buddhist monk, if I was a Rinpoche or a Lama, how would I deal with this situation? And then I would be very, very quiet and I would listen to her, and she would do whatever it was, and then we would come to an agreement and we would move on. And then many years later, she and I were meeting for lunch. She was 13 years old and I hadn't seen her in a while. And I said, what do you like about our relationship? And she gave me the look that only a daughter can give their father, like, you're a crazy man. What kind of question is that? And I said, no, I'm asking a sincere question. It helps me to understand my role as a father and my role with you. And she goes, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. And she said, it's really only one thing. And I said, what's that? And she said, you always talk. You always listen to me. You don't always tell me what I want to hear, but you always listen to me and we always talk it through. I feel like I'm heard. And so all those years of practicing to be a Buddhist monk with my daughter, with a Rinpoche, I realized it paid off more than I had ever anticipated when she said very calmly, I feel heard with you. And these are what we're talking about the Paramitas. When you've reached these levels or these experiences, they just naturally become a part of you. They're a natural expression. You rise above the need of these other teachings. Remember, we also learned that the Buddha says once you attain nirvana, or you're in this state of grace, You throw away all the teachings. You don't need them anymore. And so we're in a state of evolution. This first stage is liberation of self. The next stage is liberation of other. And in that particular case, being a little self-centered in it, but in that particular case, I was being that state of liberation for my daughter. I allowed her to have her experience. I allowed her to express in a way that I realized that she certainly wasn't my age. She couldn't communicate the way I did. She was like 2.5 or 5. But there was something in the way that I was reacting with her whereby she felt, if Dad is going to listen to me, whatever he suggests is probably going to be a good idea. Thoughts, feedback, insights?
So liberation from others is not taking things personally.
That would be one part of it, not taking things personally. If you take things personally, you're trying to solve somebody's problems. What are you doing? You're driving off into that distraction, into that broken road, and you're finding yourself in the first noble truth. There is suffering. How do you deal with that suffering? Realizing it was your choice to step into it. The third, actually, I don't think I want to step into this. I think there's another way around this. I think I'll step out of it. And to ensure that I'm going to maintain it, I've got 8 other paths that will help me to maintain this state of equanimity, this balance. For now, 6 paramitas. And once you have those paramitas, the first 5, you get the sixth perfection, which is wisdom. This all-encompassing knowing that everything is going to be okay, that everything is going to work out. Thoughts, feedback?
In the 6 paramitas I studied, this one falls under effort.
Effort, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I got morality as well.
So to
effort,
kind of return a little bit
vigor.
back to the vigor,
Yeah.
the perseverance, diligence.
Right. The word was diligence that Ruthie wanted me to discuss, so that's why I keep coming back to that.
Yeah, no, it's not a judgment at
No,
all.
I know, I
It's
get
just
that.
kind of like
I hear you.
full circle. Just another word
It's just another word.
to play with.
Yeah, but it's a word that is so, what it means is so important to our development to go in the right direction. You know, it's not easy being a human with all the distractions and all of this.
And boy, there's a lot of distractions.
There's a lot of distractions and the diligence of trying to stay on your path and to block out, you know, the noise, the distractions is tough. But it's kind of like the path that we're all on. The path to enlightenment is being diligent with what you allow in, and you kind of, in a way, you're trying to purify yourself from.
Well, you are.
From the things that don't serve you.
If I can, maybe even rephrasing blocking something out as rising above it.
Rising above it.
Yeah, because that blocking out is that against energy.
That's
yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
Rising above it.
Hardest thing for me to do is take all this stuff and use it. There's so much. Every time I come to these, I go home and I'm like,
Talking about how every time she comes here, there's just so much information to bring in, and that her mind is like,
Yeah,
don't
I'm
you feel
so
that
glad
way?
you.
It's like,
I'm so glad you come.
I have so much to learn. Wow.
yeah. And the funny thing about words, just as another thing, because you brought up that excellent point about the other words that are used to describe this same perfection, is if I ask everybody to consider the word blue, close your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes, but everybody close their eyes, and in your mind's eye you see the color blue. How many do you think will have the exact same color? And yet I used one word describing something that we're all very aware of. I said it in English, we all speak English, and yet each of us is going to have a different vision of what that color is going to be. And then take it one step further is that I put, the water element in the wild horse prayer flags. Thank you. If you look at it, you cover one eye and look at it, and then take your hand down and cover the other eye, the blue changes. So we don't even have the same color of blue from our perspective, but somehow between the two eyes, we see this one color. So how can we possibly collectively come up with a word that describes the things that we're talking about? And that's why I find that when we're reading these things about Buddhism, when we're really reading something about a Lama or Rinpoche or somebody has brought to us in a book, in a talk or whatever, we're going to hear the core expressed by one person's understanding of it to help us understand what the principles are. And then I hear it from another Rinpoche or another Lama, or I hear it from Ruthie, and I hear that person's perspective, and I go, oh, I have this perspective, I have this perspective, I have this perspective, and then I have my own perspective, which is a collection, a culmination of those three perspectives that make sense to me. And someone says, what do you call that? And I go, blue. It's blue. Oh, I know the color blue.
Yeah, one of the problems with that in our world, though, is that someone is going to say, my blue is the right color blue.
And from their
that's
perspective, they're right.
That's listening to the other, that's allowing that other stuff to come into your circle.
Yeah, at which point we might find ourselves saying, fascinating. Can you help me to understand your color of blue?
Or good luck with that.
Yeah, because it's really mine.
Yes. Yeah. It's our challenges in this world today.
Yeah. But again, I feel we're looking at these perfections. This is above our pay grade right now. But we're looking at these perfections as a destination. In this particular case, it's our Quepos. The path that we're driving on is the Costanera, and we know that as long as we stay on it, which is the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path, as long as we keep repeating these processes over and over again, we're going to feel a state of joy or enlightenment in ourselves, which we were talking about, and that joy encourages us to do more of the same. It's not a reward, but it takes away the stresses, the suffering, the confusion, and the distractions, which encourage us into enlightenment. And then once we achieve that enlightenment, those 6 perfections, or 8 or 10, become valid expressions of who we are. As I was saying before, in the tree, when we get to the upper one, it's self and other in balance, which means that if 2 people have this awareness and this understanding, there is no conflict in the kitchen. If anything, the person says, you look like you hurt your hand. Let me get a towel. I'll clean this up. And the person says, you just cleaned the kitchen. And it's like, yeah, I can do it again. Self and other in balance. Okay, now I've got a real big test for you. And Bodhi, you're going to be maybe exempt from this. Mind you, you were here a couple of weeks ago too, weren't you?
No, this is my first time.
Your first time. Oh, well, then this is the best talk you've ever had. Yeah, there's the human side. The game is Ruthie's metta. Do you remember it?
Of course.
Of course. Can we all say it out loud together? And so we know that there are different levels. First, we do metta for ourselves. Where you imagine that you're with yourself and you're blessing yourself. Then somebody that we love, that we adore, somebody who's important to us, we offer those same blessings to that person. then somebody who's in our life, somebody that that we're aware of. Maybe they're not really close to us, but we see them, or maybe we just saw an act of kindness by somebody once, and we would like to acknowledge them, and we share those same things with them. And then somebody that we're not quite seeing eye to eye with, that we have a discord with, we offer that same loving compassion, that loving kindness to them as well, no matter what wrongs we feel that they may have committed. And then lastly, to the entire universe, to all the sentient beings in this incredibly ever-growing, massive universe full of possibilities, and feeling all of that love within us, and how it's expressed in every living form here on earth, and every living expression of life throughout the universe. You ready? To ourselves. And if I trip or anywhere, please chime in, step in, okay? This is a group effort. We're going to make you proud, Ruthie. Yeah, we did. May you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live in peace and grace. May you be happy. To somebody that we adore, we love, somebody that is close by or maybe somewhere else on the earth right now, and to them we say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live in grace and ease. May you be happy. And to that person that we would like to call friend, that somebody that we're aware of, we see them. If you know them by name, you'll say it. And to them we say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live in peace and ease. May you be happy. And then to that person that we are not seeing eye to eye with, we put aside our concerns, our worries, and thoughts about them. And to that light that Pam was talking about earlier, we say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live in ease and grace. May you be happy. And Ruthie likes to have us put our hands over our heart from this incredible centered point, this incredible organ, the only thing that can even comprehend and understand the vastness of what we're about to do. To every sentient, living, conscious being in this entire universe, with an open heart, free and clear mind, we say, may you be well. May no harm come to you. May you live in ease and grace. And may you be happy. And just releasing our hands and taking a deep breath. And she likes to close with that one prayer that I confess I don't know as well as the other. If anybody,
Go in peace.
go in peace,
Go
making peace,
living
gently, loving mightily, and bowing to the mysteries.
Thank you, Mark.
Cooking a pizza or something.